Gonna start letting people in. Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We have another best friend in the audience there. Oh wow, we have so many friends here. It's great. Great. How's everybody doing? Doing good? Yeah. Yay. Cool. Well, as people come in, I won't get into it just quite yet, but go ahead and put your name in the chat along with your email. That way we can send you goodies from Coalition Snow and True Gear. And then maybe also put into the chat what you're hoping to get out of this last backcountry beta, or what you think of when you hear communication, or communication in the backcountry, something along those lines, and pop that in the chat. Try to think what I think about it. Just let Julia in, and she just disappeared. Hi, Julia. Turn that off. You're the real Jen Gurecki on this call tonight, but you're not the only one. Well, now you are, because I changed my name. So yeah. All right. Well, I'm sure a few more people are probably going to pop in as we get going here. But I am Evan, for those of you who, here's Sydney, who don't know me. Nice, Jen. I am Evan, not Jen Gurecki, for those who don't know. I am the Coalition Clubhouse headmistress. I do Backcountry beta along with running it with True Gear.
I mean,
And Jess is here from True Gear, but we're super excited to do this for another year, bring free backcountry kind of intro to backcountry skills and whatnot to people, so that there's a little less of a barrier to get into it. This is our last backcountry beta of the season, which is wild. I can't believe that we're already at the end of our season. But I'm very excited. I know I said this to a few people, but Mimi has been a longtime friend of mine. Mimi's really incredible therapist, skier, all around amazing human. So I'm super excited about that. Just one other thing before we kind of get into this. Yeah, name in the chat your email so we can give you some goodies. There's also an entry into getting a $250 True Gear gift card and a $250 Coalition Snow gift card. You get an entry for every live session you attended. So we've been keeping track of that over the season. And if you want to put into the chat too what you're hoping to maybe get from this session, or what you think of when you think about communication, or specifically communication in the backcountry. And while everyone is thinking about that, I'm going to hand it over to Jess if you want to say a couple things, and we'll keep moving along.
Thanks, Evan. I'm Jess from True Gear. I recognize a lot of names on here, so I won't give you the spiel about our bibs. But yeah, I'm Jess. Pronouns are she, her. I work for True here in Portland, Oregon. And yeah, we're going to hook you up with a discount, and a winner from this whole series is going to get a gift card. And we're really excited to be here. Winter feels like it, at least for me, like just kicked off. We just got a big storm this past weekend. So this all feels like right on time. to like kick off my season. So I'm excited to learn from you, Mimi. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, me.
Amazing. I was just gonna say amazing. Yes, we'll hand it over to Mimi. And yeah, I'm excited that you all are here. Thanks for being part of the last Backcountry beta of the season. And yeah, thanks for being here.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Mimi. I use she, her pronouns. Thank you all for being here. Thanks to Coalition and True for having me. I'll say right off the bat, public speaking is not my forte. So if I start speaking fast, it's because I'm a little nervous. And just give me a wave, pop me a chat, just if I need to slow down. And that's okay. I'm gonna share my screen. Cool, because we love a visual. Can someone just give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen? Okay, great. Awesome. Okay, cool. So again, I'm Mimi, she, her. Real quick, just want to have a quick land acknowledgement that I am currently coming to you from Leadville, Colorado, which is the ancestral territory of the Ute Nation, and just want to honor that inherent stewardship of the native people of the land that we get to recreate and play and work on and just have that privilege. So thank you for taking that moment with me. And let's talk feelings, because who doesn't love talking about feelings? I know I do in both my professional and personal life, but it did not come to me naturally. It took a lot of work to get here. So wherever you are on your talking about feelings journey, I see you, I admire you, and I thank you for being here. A little bit about me. I am a white, cis, queer, able-bodied person with ADHD. And on that note, I really try and cultivate an ADHD or neurodivergent friendly space. So if that means that you need to have your camera off during this and do other things, I not only admire that and deeply respect that, and also if you want to keep your camera on and roll around, use your foam roller, do your dishes, I also deeply respect that. So do what calls to your body, and gladly know that you're listening, and I will not be nearly any offended. And also, you don't need my permission for that. So I love to be outside, like I can imagine a lot of us do here. And I also really like to make yummy food. I love reading spicy fiction. I love sitting in hot springs and hanging out with my cats who might make an appearance. You might see them. When I'm not doing that, I am a therapist. And I usually work with femme-bodied folks who would say that they have been conditioned, or maybe I would say, or we would say, to cope with the world around them, and that usually ends up in them overperforming, people-pleasing, or being quote-unquote chill. I myself am a recovering people-pleaser / chill girl. I'm still working through that one. It's a tough one to it's deeply in there, and we're doing the best we can. Love working with people together to explore these narratives, where they're coming from, and release stored trauma in the body, because there's a pretty big overlap between the two. So that's a little bit about me before we dive in. But before we kind of get into talking about feelings, I wanted to take a quick reflection moment. And there's like 12 of us, so I feel like we probably could do like 2 groups of 6 if that feels good to people. And I went to school, in grad school during the pandemic, so I'm a huge breakout fan person. But I feel like we can break out into 2 rooms and have just like a quick reflection surrounding feelings, and particularly a moment that you can think of where you didn't really feel comfortable speaking up. And that can be in the backcountry, but it also can be in your personal life, in your professional life, just like a moment in time where you were like, oh, something isn't feeling good to me, but like, I don't really feel comfortable saying anything. And kind of talking about in your group, like what that experience felt like, and what that felt like leaving the experience. And if we have time, I think we'll take about 10 minutes. Maybe also just like thinking about, were there any dynamics that you could identify within that group or situation that kind of impacted you not feeling like it was okay to speak up? I need to figure out now how to do the breakout room.
I was gonna say, I know you know how to do it, or I think you know how to do it. Um, I
Hmm.
found I found a button, so I probably have
You
the
did?
ability to do that.
I feel like that feels like a host specialty. So if you want to do that,
Two breakout rooms.
yeah, or three, there are. Okay, cool. We'll take
Did
10 minutes.
I do it?
You did it. I'm proud of you.
Are we all in a room? I did do it, right? What's happening? Okay, where are the other ones? Where is everybody else?
They'll start coming back in.
It's
They
like
like
stuck in a
seconds.
breakout room somewhere. Technology.
It's such a thing.
Okay. I think there's
Or
still
like another. Yeah, you get like 60 seconds when the breakout to like finish your conversation. So you
God.
can either like exit early or time run out.
Okay. So maybe they're letting the time run out.
Maybe they got involved in a really enthralled conversation in the last 30 seconds. It happens.
Yeah, because I mean, I closed the rooms. Okay, they're coming back. Yay. We figured it out. Welcome back, everybody.
Oh, welcome. Okay, cool. Thank you everyone for participating. I appreciate it. I'm just curious if like anyone had any like big takeaways that they wanted to share. And if not, that's okay.
I love what Annie just said about so happy I heard this. Annie, you should say it because you'll always say it better than me. But she was just saying how if you're like feeling hot and want to take a layer off, she was like, be bothered. And I was like, I'm so gonna adopt that now and like my practice. I love that. That's really cool advice tip is she was like saying be bothered. If something's not right, then speak up about it.
I love that. I have had the pleasure to be in the backcountry with Annie and hear her say that, especially when someone says or be bold, start cold. That is, I've heard her IRL say it and it makes me smile.
I think something that came to mind after I shared my story and hearing some other reflections from folks was like I found myself in like spaces where people are like very open to talking about risks and like I was saying like very queer and like femme oriented spaces, but like with groups that are larger and needing to be, I think, a bit exclusive in order to make safe decisions. And I feel like that's a different way of speaking up because it's not the like, oh, these like ski bros aren't going to listen to me. It's people I care about. It's folks who have the same risk orientation as I do, but it's needing to make decisions that are inherently exclusive in order to make safer conversations. And I think that's something that's like really kind of sinking in for me. I had mentioned, being in a group of 8 and then always planning to split off into 2 groups of 4, but like no one wanting to start that conversation because it was inherently going to lead to a conversation around like who's going faster, who's going slower, like I think that kind of conversation can be a bit more tender for folks, especially in the backcountry and especially as like non-male folks, or like in a mixed gender dynamic. And so I think that's something that I'm going to kind of take away as like a point to think about next time I'm in a larger group or next time I'm in a space, that like part of that speaking up and being uncomfortable is like not always the like, oh, I'm scared, but it's the like, we need to separate right now, or we need to make some more like directive decisions about like group dynamics.
Yeah. That's such a great point, Annie. I really appreciate you bringing that up of like, yeah, like not, I think a big part of this presentation was like more me gearing towards like, how do we more so like, shred the patriarchy, like we're trying to like fight the ski bros a little bit and like, and just navigate those dynamics. But that's such a good point too. Like these dynamics exist too, even in like non-cis male spaces too, and like even and getting almost can be even more tender to your point. Yeah, cool. Well, thank you for sharing. And yeah, I love a reflection. It's such a nice way to start off than me talking at you. Get a little stimulation going. So, to no one's surprise, well, I hope no one's surprised that feelings can be really hard to talk about and really hard to feel and really uncomfortable in general. And that is like a pretty common experience for most people, I would say. And I kind of want to, before we talk about like the how, I kind of want to take a zoom out and talk about the why of like why feelings can feel hard and what dynamics are at play in these situations. And so where I want to start is, there is a social worker named Dr. Brene Brown. You might have heard of her. She's on the podcast circuit. And she wrote a really great book a couple years ago called Atlas of the Heart. I have it right here. I use it a lot, both in personal and professional reasons. And basically what happened was that Brene Brown does she does a lot of social science research surrounding resiliency and shame. And during writing one of these many books, she writes about shame, not this book, but prepping for another book, she and her team interviewed about 7,000 people. And within that survey that they had, they asked people how many feelings could they confidently identify in their body. So like, I know that I'm feeling sadness in my body and blank, blank, blank. And for some audience participation, does anyone want to guess what the average number of feelings that people could confidently identify is?
I want to say like 3, like mad, sad, happy.
Anyone else want to guess? Oh wait, I'm seeing chat. Okay, great. We got a 3, a 4, a 2, a 10. Wow, Lisa, I love that confidence. Okay. All right. So, Leo was 100% correct. It is 3, and it was happy, sad, and angry, which like makes sense if we think about it, even from thinking back to evolutionary perspective of like when we were babies and we couldn't speak and we couldn't point or do anything to advocate for our needs, we knew how to cry and we knew how to scream, and we eventually learned how to laugh. So like those things are just like hardwired into our brains. So it makes sense that people know how to feel these things. And also, this basically, Dr. Brown then took that information and cross-referenced it and interviewed over 300 mental health professionals, so like social workers, therapists, psychologists, etc., and found that they made it of basically asking them, of being like, okay, so like this is what people are saying, how many feelings could we be feeling? And they came up with a list of over 200 feelings, which is a really big jump from 3. So then basically they whittled that list down and down to like 75 feelings that like realistically the average person feels in their lifetime. And that's what the book is about, is like all these different feelings. But I just think that is really fascinating and speaks to like how actively we avoid trying to feel our feelings as people. And why it feels so important is Dr. Brown also uses a really great analogy that I love in the book about like, imagine you had a really intense sharp pain in your shoulder. And when you decided to go to the doctor because you could barely see straight because it was so painful, the doctor asks you, they're like, hey, what's going on? And all of a sudden you feel like you have a piece of masking tape over your mouth and hands tied behind your back. Like, how are you going to advocate for yourself? You're probably either going to like fall on the ground and cry and like be in a ball. That probably would be my approach, or like thrash around. And those are anger and sadness, like in real life. And so for a lot of people, when we don't know how to articulate what's happening in our body and our brain, those are our fallbacks, which is like better than feeling nothing for sure. But there's also just so much more potential there. So I'm also just trying to keep a track of the time. So I might move through this one a little fast because I feel like we, at least my group, kind of touched on a lot of the systemic factors at play when feeling feelings, especially as non-cis men. But mostly, I think the main points to cover is that like there's this explicit and implicit bias, and especially when it comes to like gender roles or just like being an underrepresented gender in these spaces, such as the backcountry. And to Annie's point, even when we are conscious surrounding this like explicit bias, there is this implicit bias. It's still there. It's pretty deep rooted in us. And when we think about the backcountry specifically, there is a pretty masculine energy associated with like snow sports in general, like besides the fact that it's like a pretty cis male dominated space, but like energetically there's a lot. If we think about who most people are learning their things from, like if you're like luckier enough to go to a more like femme focused like Avi 1 class, that's incredible, but odds are even the teachers that are femme or non-binary folks realistically learned at some point, like the lineage of learning included a cis male at some point. So like that is ingrained even with just like any other social justice work. Like the bias doesn't go away after we just name it once. Like it's a consistent work to keep acknowledging it. And if even like when we think about the language we're using in the backcountry, like as much as I love saying like shredded and send it and all those things, like they do have an inherently masculine quality about them. So, so we kind of talked about the why. Now let's talk about the how. Like, okay, great. This is a little bit of a bummer. Like, what do we do about this? So, like any adventure, the work starts at home, and we start small and we work our way up. So if you think about prepping for any adventure, we're the most successful when we prepare ahead of time, right? Like we're not, well, sometimes we're running around the parking lot scrambling to like make sure our beacons have batteries and we have enough snacks. And like hopefully that's not the biggest adventure and the biggest line we're going after, because we're human and that is a part of it. But the overarching theme that we're aiming for is to not be scrambling around the parking lot or around our house the morning of. We're packing the night before. We're taking our AV1 class. We're making sure we have enough snacks and how long we're going to be there. We have a turnaround time set. The amount of mental work that goes into an adventure, I think we just get used to over time, but there's so much that goes into it, right? And that is the same with this emotional work and like communication too. That starts at home. And whether you think of home as like with your roommates or your partner or your dog, or like home as in your body and your own personal work, wherever home means to you, that's where we start. And the personal work aspect can look a bunch of different ways. Maybe we start reading a lot of self-help books about communication. Maybe we start going to therapy. Maybe we talk about this in therapy. I'm obviously biased towards therapy, but that might not be the route for you, and I deeply respect that. Kind of talking about group dynamics, which we'll talk about as well a little bit, of just like making a group that we feel safety and trust with, and that we potentially, honestly, we should plan on having hard conversations with. Have you had a hard conversation with them? Not in the backcountry. That usually says a good thing. If we can handle a hard conversation about like doing the dishes, that's going to set a nice precedent for having a hard conversation in the backcountry. And then just like that systemic work that I kind of touched on earlier, of just like being like, are we thinking about the biases that go into our own personal views on backcountry sports and sports in general, or communication, how we see that, and just like continuously doing that work. Okay, so on the note of like personal work, this is a feelings wheel. It's one of my favorite things to use both in my professional life and my personal life. When I first started therapy, I whenever my therapist asked me how that made me feel, I literally said good and bad, and those were my only responses. And it got to a point where she was like, yo, like we gotta, like that is it, bad is a feeling, like that's totally, but like good really isn't a feeling. Like we should, like, maybe you said one of your goals is that you want to start like feeling more feelings and having more vocabulary for this, so like let's challenge ourselves a little bit. And she introduced that to me, which this is like a really commonly used tool in therapy. And so like I kid you not, at one point in my life I had this downloaded on my phone. I probably still have it on my phone in my photos somewhere. And when I would feel something in my body where I just like did not know what I was feeling, I would whip this out and be like, okay. Yeah, bring repelled into the vocab. That rocks.
I really like
But
repelled. I'm gonna do that instead of like I'm feeling mad or this person's pissed me off. Like I'm feeling repelled.
yeah. Oh my gosh. Betrayed is a really good one, honestly, too. Like I think that we feel betrayal way more than we think we do. But yeah, what I really like about this one is that like you can start in the middle of being like, okay, like what the hell is happening in my body? Okay, I know it's not happy. We can like do a little process of elimination here. Be like, okay, like I guess I'm kind of feeling fearful. And then it gets more specific as we fan out, and we can get to the like insignificance. Like maybe we don't stick to this one because that feels a little heavy for the topic, but like and happy, like there's value, there's respected, there's curious, there's joyful, and those are just so much more specific than happy. And at the end of the day, like yes, articulating our needs to other people can be incredibly important and incredibly helpful, but articulating our needs to ourselves is like even more important than that. And just because like gotta keep number one, you know, like we just like, the more we can get to know ourselves, the more we can better identify what we need. And then if we want to let other people into that process, that's also incredible. But at the end of the day, like knowing yourself better is like just one of a really kind thing you can do. But yeah, so a feelings wheel, highly suggest if that is something that interests you. Also, yeah, the web, it's like feelingswheel.org and it's a free download. And then I also want to, something that I was kind of stewing on as I was prepping this is, and if people have like a piece of paper and a pen, that might be useful right now. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that before, or like taking notes on your phone or computer, that also works, or just in your brain, whatever floats your boat. But just something to ponder, I think specifically in the backcountry, not specifically in the backcountry, but also it applies really well to the backcountry, of this conversation around anxiety versus intuition. And a lot of people, I guess, to like take a step back, I do a lot of somatic therapy, which is like where we're feeling our feelings in our body. So, and when I've like been doing my own work or working with other people, there's a lot of confusion in our body of is it anxiety or is it intuition? Because if we think about those two things, like anxiety, like you think about like, oh, I have a pit in my stomach when I'm feeling anxious, is like a really commonly said thing. And similarly with intuition, that's like a gut feeling. And so for a lot of people, it might not be you, but it could be you as well. Like we feel those two feelings somewhere in our abdomen, and it can be really confusing to people. Similarly, how like excitement and anxiety can feel confusing to people. Like, I don't know if anyone's ever heard that before, but that's also a really commonly confused the emotion. But yeah, but specifically with like intuition versus anxiety, we can feel them both in our stomach. And I just want people to maybe take like 2 to 4 minutes. That feels arbitrarily a number, but of just like thinking about how you know that you're feeling anxious, and like what are your own personal tells, and like we'll just keep it for yourself. We don't need to share because this feels pretty personal. And then also thinking about, how do you know that your gut is talking to you? Because for a lot of people, there is a Venn diagram where the two overlap. And I think in the backcountry, the two are both incredibly important voices to listen to, whether we're feeling anxious about a group dynamic, whether we're feeling anxious about something we saw in the snow, versus I'm feeling this like weird gut feeling, like I thought I heard like a whoop back there, and like that exposure is looking like really just like spooking me for some reason. Those are both incredibly important things to notice and to like articulate to yourself and to usually your group members, but they are two very different things. And like one usually has a different takeaway from another. They both could lead with you turning around, like that they could both end with the same result, but they are different things. And so I just word vomited a little bit, but let's take like 2 to 3 minutes and just like think about, and maybe write down if you want, of both how you know you're feeling anxious and then how you know your gut is talking to you. And I'm going to take a sip of water. Okay. I feel like that was 2 minutes, but
Yeah, Jen shared a little thing in the chat from an example that happened.
yeah. Oh gosh, thank you for sharing, Jen. Do you feel like, could you identify like whether that was like anxiety versus intuition of like knowing it was time to not do another, or both, or
Well, yeah,
any
because
thoughts?
when I'm anxious, I'm an asshole, and I was not an asshole today. I was very pleasant the whole day. And so for that, I was like, wait, that's like all these years of like, okay, like we did just get 100 inches. They did just open this today. Now you're alone. You're on your whatever 8th, 10th run. You ski really hard. You ski in the trees. You like, just even knowing myself, and there's people on this call who skied with me before. Like I kind of go for it. And so it's hard for me to be like, I'm just going to take it easy. And I know I don't do that. So I was like, you probably don't need to be doing this anymore. You've had a lovely day. Just go home. And it was hard. So there's so much good snow still. So much good snow.
Yeah,
But I called it, and I left. And it was
yeah.
intuition, not anxiety, because I was not being an asshole.
Yeah. Wow, I love that you know that tell about yourself of like, I know I'm not anxious because I'm not being an asshole. That's awesome. That's like such a good way to know the difference between the two. Because yeah, it can feel super confusing for a lot of folks. Yeah, I welcome anyone else to share if you want, and also we can keep moving too. Okay, cool. All right. Yeah, and like I think too, incredible if you do know your tell. That is feels like such useful information to know yourself. And it takes also probably Jen has done a lot of work to like know herself that well at this point, and that like sometimes just takes time and a lot of pondering, a lot of reflection, reflecting with friends, reflecting with your therapist if you have one. And yeah, that is also a lot of this is like a muscle, and we all start somewhere in regards to that, like any new skill, and it gets easier after time. So yeah. Um, I'm giggling at your your chat. Thank you. Okay, cool. So then, yeah, and I feel like group dynamics is something that thankfully is talked about in like most like Abby ones and any type of like snow science course, and probably has been a topic of a backcountry beta or something and brought up there. But I also, as I was pondering this too, of was just like, obviously, I feel like I remember in my Abby one where I was one of 2 women of like 25 people, and they split us into groups, and it was taught by all cis dudes. And at one point they like were like, yeah, group dynamics are important. You should have a good group that you like. And like then we moved on, and I was like, okay, like they like definitely it felt like they like had to check a box by like say the word group dynamic and then you did the class. Like that was the big feeling, and that was in 2018, but still, I bet that still exists somewhere in a lot of places. But yeah, group dynamics are just so incredibly important. I feel like so many people have touched on that, and when we've shared, a bunch of people have shared, and so I don't feel like I need to harp on like why it's important to like have people that you trust and feel seen and safe with. But it is really important. But what I think, to take it one step further, I've been talking a lot about why it's so like why and how to articulate your needs tonight. But at the end of the day, like just like no is a complete sentence, something doesn't feel right with me is also a complete sentence. And the people that you go out into the backcountry with, you should feel not only safe and seen, but be able to say that to them and be like, got it. Like no questions asked. Like, yeah, maybe you debrief it later when we're out of the situation, but like you should not be getting pushback at that point. And unfortunately, you still might, because the world we live in, and ideally like that's the group dynamic that we're actually striving for. And like you don't need to say anything else if you don't need to. I mean, if you don't want to, like obviously articulating feelings is really incredibly important and blah, 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 everything I've just said. But at the end of the day, like that's a complete sentence, and that is enough. And it should be enough for your partners that you go into the backcountry with. So, that's kind of where I wanted to leave it. I feel like each one of these points that I brought up could be a hour-long talk in itself, and I was nervous about time. And I wanted to leave room for questions and comments and any feedback that anyone had, but I just appreciate everyone's time. And whether you are a deeply seasoned therapy goer and feelings reflector, that is incredible, or if you're at the beginning of your journey of feeling feelings, I see you, I appreciate you, and I commend you for just being here. So thank you, everyone.
Yay, Mimi. I love the last slide of just no as a complete sentence, like with so many things. I feel like that's definitely one in the backcountry. And then also, like, I know you and I have talked about this a lot of like, oh, I just don't want to, like I don't need to explain why, like I just don't want to, or like, no, and getting over that like need to be like, cause here's why, like, no, I can actually just leave it at that. So always love that reminder. Julia says, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. And like, I feel like I kind of skipped over this when I was talking about like systemic factors at play, but I just feel like so many people that were raised as women have been conditioned to be like chill and people pleasing and go with the flow, and like you're seen as more valuable when you do all of those things, and you don't want to seem, we talked a little bit in my breakout group about not wanting to be hysterical, and like because those are really real realities, and like that reminder, like gosh, I need it all the time of just being like, no is about a reason enough, and that's it, and the people we surround ourselves with should understand that.
100%, Mimi. Do other people have any, oh, what have I done? Sorry, my screen was being really weird. Does anyone else have any, questions or thoughts or anything they want to share? I feel like this was a really great session, and Mimi, I'm so happy that you were here, and I feel like it is a nice just like tie-in for the end of the season and for the start of the season. Like Jess was saying, like things are getting kicked off, and so like whether it's getting kicked off or now that it's in some places like springtime and people are like getting out there more or pushing things during springtime, I feel like communication and like group dynamics, all of that is going to especially come into play. And also with like season burnout, I know for myself, I'm getting there. And so like, I will be saying no a lot, I think, and needing to find that space between like intuition, anxiety over it, and like being tired and just saying like, no. So I feel like it is a very timely session. So thank you so much. Brooke says this was amazing. I don't know if y'all are looking at the chat, but everyone loved it.
Yeah, Mimi, it was fantastic. And it's, I'm sure you already know this. This is what you do, but it's applicable to so many other things in life, right? Like use your voice, say what you need. Don't be afraid about people disliking you. And we could be having those conversations. And honestly, we could be having like support groups every single day about these things. These issues are so much more than, when we recreate in the backcountry.
I'm muted. Fun. Very much so. I feel like, as I was preparing this, I was like, wow, this just like applies to every aspect of my life. And like, this is absolutely absurd. And speak with support groups. That's like fascinating you brought that up, because that is like something that I'm planning on potentially offering to people that live in Colorado about licensure. But yeah, I feel like underrepresented voices in the outdoors, like there's just so much space to like that we need to take up and like also like just express and process and like so if you live in Colorado, keep on the lookout. You have my email now.
Yeah, and that's great segue to Mimi. I just wanted to see if there's anything you want to shout out or share. You just said something that you're kind of working on. In the follow-up doc, I'm gonna also link your website. And that way, mainly for people in Colorado, but if people need a resource, or know someone who is looking to get into, therapy and things that you do, but I just wanted to give you a moment if there's anything you want to shout out that you're working on or where people can find you.
Yeah, that's like the main thing I'm working on right now is potentially starting some group work that would be realistically remote throughout Colorado, however. And then yeah, if you know anyone that needs a therapist in Colorado, I am accepting new clients, shameless plug. And or if you just like need recommendations for or just like want to chat feelings, like feel free to email me. I'm gladly be a resource. I also lived in Washington for 4 years, and that's where I did grad school. So if you need a therapist in Washington, I also can probably recommend someone as well.
Cool. Thanks so much, Mimi. And thank you all for being here, and being part of the last session of this season. This, of course, will be shared to Backcountry Beta, the recording and the follow-up document. So it's a great resource to share with all your friends, and let them know how amazing Backcountry Beta and Coalition and True are. And yeah, so invite all your friends and share this with them, because I think so many people can take something away, whether it's for the backcountry or not. Oh, cool. So yeah, I'll see some of you in real life, I hope soon. And if not, I'll see you in the clubhouse. And thank you so much, Mimi and Jess and Jen. Without both of you, this would not happen. So thank you so much.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Yay, good job, Mimi.
Bye.
Yay, Mimi. Oh, hey,
Yay,
friends.
Mimi. Oh.
Here, I'm gonna stop the recording real quick.
Oh, yeah.